Welcome! We are so glad you could join us for this American Red Cross Mapathon. My name is Rachel Levine and I'm the Missing Maps Program Coordinator. Today I will spend 10 minutes presenting on the Missing Maps program. After that, I'll teach you how to map in OpenStreetMap using ID Editor. This will take about 15 minutes.
Oh no, I don't have an OpenStreetMap account. What should I do?
OSM accounts are free and yours to keep using after this Mapathon. If you don't have an account, go ahead and create one on OpenStreetMap.org now. Okay, we're ready to get started. Hey Eric, can you turn off the lights? This is a data density map of nodes in OpenStreetMap, or OSM. This is the mapping platform we use for our work. What this image tells us is that many of the world's vulnerable communities are not on any accessible map. When we don't know where people live, where they shop, where they cross borders, we cannot help them as effectively as possible, let alone plan preventative programming. So in 2014, we formed the Missing Maps Partnership to address these gaps, and over the last 5 years, we've made some serious progress. The project's aim was to strategically map the world's vulnerable communities. Since its unprecedented founding, the Missing Maps Partnership has grown to 20 organizations. In 2020, our newest groups, the German Red Cross and Crowd to Map Tanzania, joined. As the program gained momentum, OSM and the Missing Maps workflow has become more of an industry standard across the Red Cross movement. After the Indonesia earthquake in 2018, Haiti, with the PMI team, created dozens of new maps to plot earthquake damage, affected households, and delivery of humanitarian aid in Lombok using this open data. Creating maps helps humanity, said Haiti. How many of you are familiar with OSM? Basically, it's the Wikipedia of maps. It's open source and editable by anyone. OSM isn't just a humanitarian tool. You might be using it in your daily life already. If you've used Etsy, Wikipedia, the Weather Channel, or watched the Patriot Act, you've used and seen OSM data already. Only about 15% of mappers contribute to humanitarian mapping projects, so keep in mind that there might already be data in the area you're mapping, and whatever you map today will probably be used from multiple resources as the map continues to get fleshed out. So, why are some of the communities we are working with missing from the map? Often, communities we set out to document are well established, but for-profit companies haven't prioritized documenting them. A community could also be documented, but using a proprietary system. This makes it hard and expensive for decision makers to access data on their own communities. This is a before and after map for Gekadu, Guinea. The Red Cross had a mapping hub here as part of our post-Ebola recovery work in 2016. Another reason communities need documentation is because they are new or have experienced significant changes. Since the Haiti earthquake in 2010, almost 250,000 people have moved to the hillsides surrounding Port-au-Prince. Here we can see one of those communities, Canaan. Missing Maps is a preparedness program. We help create data for communities to support specific projects and to meet future data needs. This long-term data readiness activity is ongoing, and building out the map is a continuous process to address vulnerabilities in partnerships with national societies. Mapping might take place over a couple months or a couple years, and these needs and vulnerabilities will change with time. Each project will have different needs, but for community mapping projects, we have a 3-step process. Let's take a closer look at each step. First, digital volunteers trace satellite imagery to create base maps. While you can do this on your own, tracing also happens at group events like Mapathons. These events are happening all over the world, in public libraries, college campuses, and the workplace. The Mapathon results in the creation of a basic digital map. We consider this the black and white phase of the map. Here we have Mapathons in Mali for GeoWeek, Tennessee, and at the Red Cross headquarters office. So welcome to the club. We've had over 100,000 volunteers for the program at this point. Together we've put almost 46 million buildings on the map. On to step 2. After creating a base map, community members or those with local knowledge fill in the map. Local communities decide what's important for them and mapping begins. We organize our work by gridding out a community and assigning squares. This setup is quite similar to what you'll be doing later. When mapping a community, we're talking about 3 ideas: accessible, respectful, and comprehensive maps. Accessible maps are those that the community can update and grow with. When something lives in a government minister's file cabinet or is a PDF, we can't update it with the community. Respectful mapping comes in not just in how nice and neat we trace features in a community, but in naming conventions as well. As communities change and honor different administrations or local heroes, accessible maps can be updated quickly to reflect these new naming conventions. Last but not least, comprehensive maps. When a community leader can see the full picture, they can make more informed decisions. This example is from Hoi An, Vietnam. Mappers collect their data differently, depending on the needs and capacity of that community. We mostly use mobile phones like we see on the left during a mapping training with the Jamaican Red Cross. We also use a printed resource called Field Papers, which we see in the right in Hoi An. On to step 3, using the data. Launched in February 2001, the Measles Initiative is a long-term commitment to preventing deaths by vaccinating children in partnership with local health ministries, the United Nations Foundation, the World Health Organization, and UNICEF. 1 in every 500 people around the world is either a Red Cross staffer or volunteer. So that means one thing we do better than most any other organization is social mobilization. Here in Zambia, a trusted Red Cross volunteer, Anton, collects local children who need to be vaccinated. He picks them up with his bike, takes them to the clinic, and returns them to their parents when they are finished. When we have maps to guide volunteers like Anton, we can make sure no children are missed. In 2017, we added 1 million buildings to help prepare for a measles vaccine campaign in Malawi. Because measles vaccine rates need to hit 95% for herd immunity to protect the most vulnerable among us, mappers all over the world prepared this data to assist with the vaccination of 8 million children in only 1 week. We also work here in the U.S. Another great example of our maps in action was our work in Puerto Rico following Hurricane Maria in 2017. Over 6,000 people helped us produce the most comprehensive maps of the island in the 3 weeks after the storm made landfall. In addition to supporting navigation needs, we partnered with our Restoring Family Links program and were able to compare these maps to places with no connectivity and set up charging and Wi-Fi stations for people to use to connect to their loved ones. Often when pandemics occur, contact tracing is an important step in stopping its spread. The largest Ebola outbreak lasted from 2014 to 2016. One of the reasons it lasted so long was the inability to contact trace most patients who arrived at MSF clinics. Only about 2 out of every 10 people were able to be traced. What we noticed is that many of these people came from areas in the border regions. So after the outbreak, we set out to map and name these communities. We had originally thought we'd visit 5,000 some communities, but it ends up there were 7,000 plus. Knowing what people call the place where they live is a key building block towards understanding a community. This concept, documenting communities before an epidemic strikes, is the core of our work with the CP3 program. CP3, the Community Epidemic and Pandemic Preparedness Program, is organized by the IFRC, and we've spent the last 2 years working directly with 8 national societies to build out their maps and assist with data gathering. When we know what a community calls themselves, where hospitals are, or the fastest way to get from town A to B, we are better prepared for whatever comes our way. We are very excited about the work we've been doing with drones. In the past, we've used drone imagery to document the new community of Canaan, Haiti, and the recovery efforts in Tacloban following Typhoon Haiyan in the Philippines. In these images, we are flying drones to capture imagery and will use the maps produced to keep track of shelters built with Red Cross support. You'll see these are the ones with red roofs. This data isn't just used once. Everything we produced is shared back with the community and the wider world using OpenStreetMap. You'll see the next step for this data in the image on the right. This turned into a map that now hangs outside of Town Hall and is used to document evacuation routes, respond to disasters, and to ensure that every household is cared for in case of an emergency. When the partnership first formed, our goal was to map the communities of 20 million people. We reached that in about 18 months. Our next goal was to map the communities of 200 million people. We hit that in November 2019, a year early. That's thanks to mappers like you. Going forward, our new goal is to validate all that data, to continue to support communities as they keep that up to date, and of course, to keep mapping. Thank you so much for your time. Now that you know a bit more about the program, we're going to transition to our mapping training. Now we're going to learn how to map using ID Editor.
Hey, quick question. Can I use any browser?
Please use any except for Internet Explorer.
Can I use a tablet?
Please use a computer with a mouse if possible. Touchscreens aren't ideal for this activity. Thanks for your questions. I'm going to switch over to the Tasking Manager now so we can get started with our tutorial. So we're ready to get started. Here we are on the Tasking Manager homepage. This is how we keep track of all of our volunteers. Today we will navigate to a project, check out a square, and map. If you're doing this as part of a group, you've been assigned a project. You can either click on the project link directly or explore projects and search for your number. Once you're on your project page, please make sure to first log in the top right corner. I'm already logged in, but this is how you'll share your email address. This is also how we say thank you. Please start by reading your task description. In this example, we'll be mapping to support the Red Cross Climate Center in Indonesia. When you're ready, click the red Contribute button on the bottom. Next, read over your instructions. Your project administrator will give you everything you need to get started. Switch over to the Instructions tab and give it a read. For this project, we'll map buildings only and we'll use Bing imagery. To pick a square, we'll use the map on the right. We're looking for a translucent square. As more and more of us contribute, these squares will change color and you'll see a lock symbol. To get started, left-click on a square. Notice that the outline of the square turns black. And on the bottom of your screen, hit the red Map Selected Task button. You are now in OpenStreetMap, so let's set ourselves up for success. First, left-click on this battery-looking icon, and that will minimize your menu. Next, open up your background settings, or press B, and make sure you're using the right imagery, and then brighten it up. You can put away the menu by pressing B again, or closing the menu. The first thing we want to note is our big pink bounding box. Today we want to map all the buildings in our box and let our neighbor map those that are mostly in their box. To get started, you want to zoom in nice and close using the scrolly guy on your mouse or the plus and minus sign. To pan, we'll left click, hold down the button, and move our mouse. We have three components to our map: points, lines, and area. If you hover your mouse, it'll tell you what each one is for. Today we'll be using the area tool. So to get started, left click, and the tool will turn purple. So how do we know we found the building? We're going to look for a couple different things. First, nice, even geometric shapes. Second, we'll look for roof peaks. Third, we'll look for shadows. And fourth, we'll look for some context clues that humans are using this space. Once we found our building, to get started, we'll left-click on our corners, and we'll double left-click to end. Over here on the left, we'll search for the word building, and left-click to pick that tag. You'll notice the building is now flashing red. Our next step is to right-click on the line and use either our circle tool or our square tool. The square tool is going to help us make our buildings nice and neat. We're going to do that again. We'll pick the area tool. We'll left-click on all of our corners. We'll double left-click to end. Notice building pops up top of our list because we just used it. And we'll square our corners. Next, we'll map a feature close to another feature. Zoom in nice and close. You'll notice I'm at about 50 feet. Choose the area tool and left-click your corners. Notice when I get close to the road, it highlights to snap. Make sure you're not highlighting that other feature and left-click on your corners. Choose the building tool and square your edges. You'll notice that the square tool is really a misnomer. What it does is it makes your right angles, or close to right angles, right angles. So you're going to have to help them out a little bit. Architects all over the world have a game plan, so we want to make sure everything we map is nice and neat. We're looking for rectangles, squares, L shapes, U shapes, occasionally other shapes too. But we want to make sure we're sticking with that architect's plan. As you'll map, you'll notice your Save tool is getting more and more yellow the more you map. We recommend saving after every 20 or 30 edits. Once you hit that number, or if you have to go, left-click to save. You'll notice your change set comments are preloaded. If you have any to add, now's the time. You'll also see I would like someone to review my edits. If you're doing this as part of Missing Maps, we already have a validation component built in, so no need to check the box. You'll want to scroll down a little bit and review what you've done. If you have any errors, left-click, and the computer will help you find that error and fix the problem. If you don't have any, you're ready to upload. Once that's done, everything you've just mapped is now live in OpenStreetMap. You can keep mapping, but once you're done, make sure your Save button is grayed out, open back up your menu, and tell the community what you've done. Today, I have not finished mapping, so I'm going to check No. I'll submit my task, and it'll take me back to the home page. If you'd like to keep mapping, please follow these instructions again and pick a new square. If you're done for the day, you're done. Thanks for your time.
Thank you for following along.
This was a lot of fun. Can I keep mapping after this?
Yes, we hope you keep up with your mapping. With your OSM account, you can map again using the Tasking Manager or even map directly in OpenStreetMap. Here's a link for additional projects. From all of us here at the Red Cross, thanks again for your participation in today's Mapathon. If you have any questions, please reach out. Happy mapping!